Gotta wait for Mark. Always the fun part when someone actually shows up a little bit earlier. There we go.
What's up, dude?
How you doing, man? Happy Friday to you.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Started off right.
Hey, yeah, what you got? Show me.
Oh, you know, just that new hotness, that Southern Tier Vanilla Whipped Milkshake IPA.
Dude, that's awesome.
These things are like $5 a can, but they are so delicious.
Nice, that's good. Let's see. I'll let you choose. I just brought 3 in here. This is one of my favorites. The Rainbow Sherbet, the Prairie. I'm always doing Prairie.
That sounds so good.
Wherever it is. Oh, beer. Oh, beer. I wish the camera wasn't like backwards. I can't even read it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I even took the time of like setting up the banner behind me, but now that's probably not the way it goes. But whatever.
Right? Yeah.
And then my second one, I don't know if this has made it out to you. So Bell's now has a lighthearted IPA.
Nice.
It's pretty solid.
That's awesome. That's good. I do like their hazy one.
Yeah.
I've had before. It's solid. And then I got because I knew I was going to be joined with your presence and you're a big PB&J guy.
Ooh,
I got
you know it.
J beer right here.
All right.
In 4th tap, and then a buddy of mine, a neighbor of mine, actually got a home brew of his or whatever, which is awesome. Russell Sprout Brewing.
Oh, I thought it was a Brussels sprout beer, and I was like, get the fuck out of here with that.
Oh, man. Dude, that would be horrible.
Yeah, not good.
I've never jumped on the Brussels sprout train, even if they're, fried in bacon grease or, sauteed to where they're kind of sweet or whatever, and everybody raves about them. It's still a Brussels sprout.
Then I finished up this just a couple of minutes ago. The Lamb of God non-alcoholic Ghost Walker.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you were telling me about that. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, so I did a chat with Willie from Lamb of God, specifically about that. And me personally, I cracked open the can literally as we're talking because he made the comment, and I was going to do it anyway, but he was like, I ran out of my own to drink. And it tastes so much like a beer that the fact that it's not is weird. Like the whole time I kept taking sips of it, I'm like, nah, this is a beer. And I guess legally it is a beer. It's 0.05%. Okay. But it's surprisingly really good. I haven't been to BrewDog before. I know they're in Columbus, and they kind of have sort of been pigeonholing, kind of cornering the NA market for beer, for craft beer. And it's one of those things where, talking with Willie about it, I was like, are you guys going to do kind of like a Deftones thing and do seasonal releases with the beers? Which surprisingly, I figured between him and Randy being avid coffee drinkers, that they would have gone with like a porter or a stout first. And it kind of was like, we never drank those to begin with, so that thought never really crossed our minds. So just one of those things that, it is kind of interesting to see the non-alcoholic space actually kind of taking off in the craft beer realm. Yeah,
it is interesting for sure. I have a few friends, and I've tried like a coffee cream ale or whatever, non-alcoholic, and it's not awesome. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I like everything else. It only gets better. So I'm sure they'll perfect it all, and it'll be awesome. But yeah, I'm sticking to the good stuff. Let's see. What do you think? Rainbow Sherbet?
I say do that. That has me intrigued
Rainbow
as to how that tastes. Because, so this is like a really weird thing. My wife gets on me quite a bit for being on my phone, like all the time. And, some days she'll be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, like one day I was like, because we had a real bad, giant, like, bumblebee problem at the end of our driveway.
Yeah.
And they were like in our telephone pole. And so I was like, I'm Googling to see if bees sleep. Because if bees sleep, then maybe there's a time when they're less active and I can go like spray out that thing. like where their hive is or whatever, and not get just all kinds of stung.
Okay.
And she goes, "Oh, well, do bees sleep?" And I go, "No, they just go into like a less dormant state where they're not moving around as much." But it's one of those things, like, that's kind of how I am. Like, I'll get a random thought in my head, and then I start Googling it, and then I'll Google those things to make sure that I'm not, getting misinformed on something, and then doing like a lot of people do on social media, where you just perpetuate wrong information.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but no, I had read that because, there's always the sorbet sherbet thing.
Yeah.
And apparently sherbet is not a thing. It's always supposed to be sorbet, but somehow it turned into sherbet at some point.
Right. And we definitely added the other R because it's like the pronunciation or phonetically correct or whatever, and it looks like sherbet or whatever right there. Anyway, but yeah, this is one of my favorites for sure. Anybody that's watching, you should grab yourself one of these and go to town. It's so good, I'll tell you what. It is awesome, and I do love Prairie Artisan Ales. They're good stuff. Well, shoot, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. Dink.
Here's a fun thing I've been thinking about, because, like, I know here in Grand Rapids, like, Founders is, just down the road from where I live, and a lot of other breweries around the state. Do you think we're going to get all kinds of just funky flavors and shit coming out when everything's done?
Huh. In what regard do you mean?
So I know, like, we have a couple of distilleries and so forth here, and I know that there are still, so the distilleries are now kind of doing the thing where since they have the processes in place to make various alcohol products, they're making, like, hand sanitizers. So I know a few of our distilleries are selling hand sanitizers and making it themselves. Adversely, I know Founders is still open because obviously they're still distributing their beer and making it to distribute around. I would assume they're still making new beer because they're not just going to stop making it. Right. So it makes me wonder, at this point now with, I think the lockdown being almost a month now here in Michigan and probably everywhere else, I'm just wondering, like, what kind of crazy flavors they're making, because they're probably not having to produce as much of the mainstay stuff for the tap house and other places, because kegs aren't really a thing since they can't go somewhere and get it on tap. So it's really making me wonder, like, what kind of crazy adventurous stuff are people going to be making that you're going to maybe be seeing in 5, 6, 7, 8 months to a year?
Yeah. No, I hear you in that. Yeah, for sure. I know it's weird because with Founders, I got scared because of CBS. They said it's the last batch that they're ever going to do. But now I don't understand, because it's like I guess they made a whole hell of a lot of them, and they're just everywhere. And it still seems like the brewery's doing fine. So I don't know. It's weird.
I made a joke, as much as you can make a joke about the situation Founders is in, and I'm not going to get into it, but weird that, they're saying they're going to donate all the proceeds from the Detroit location and some of the ones, I think, from the Grand Rapids location for the next year. And it makes me wonder, are they going to uphold that and just only donate from this year, which obviously is in just a fucking crapshoot? Or are they going to kind of rectify that a little bit, and maybe when everything kind of gets back up and running, start kind of a new, like, fiscal year for that to actually make the donations and such more of a decent chunk?
Gotcha. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I've always been a fan, and I appreciate their process and their flavors. They're yummy.
What have you... I mean, you guys have been doing just a shitload of these live things, like, over on Facebook and stuff. How have you found this form of communicating? It looks like you guys are doing writing sessions during all of this that way, too. How has that been for you guys?
It's been good. Fortunately, the world is in a place to where technology has come so much further than it did, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago. So right now, it's like we can actually seamlessly and without latency, or like very, very minute, like, hear each other. And we're just with the software Audio Moves, or I think it's Audio Movers. It's awesome, and it's really cool. We're working out some kinks, but it's going good to where we can hear each other's audio, and basically it's like we can tweak right then, and you don't hear through, you know, other speakers or whatever. You hear through, it goes into their DAW, and
Okay.
which is really neat. And we're just about to start doing that. For the most part, we've been kind of just talking through lyrics and then hearing stuff. We all have our own, you know, Axe Effects or whatever software we're using to record. So we just, you know, we get on Zoom or, you know, whatever video chat, and then talk about, you know, what needs to be done, who's feeling what, who's up to what, and then we spend some time on it. And it kind of, yeah, just like anything else, some ideas are great and then some are terrible. And you know, it's a constant, yes, I'm so proud of myself, and then damn it, like, why didn't anybody like that? I could have sworn that was awesome, and then it wasn't.
So last time we talked was I think it was like the last week of the Ghost tour that you guys were on to kind of finish out the album cycle. I know I saw the photos. I haven't seen video. How did your Ghostbusters prank go over?
Oh man, that's a great question. It went over very well. I think their crew died laughing, because even our crew dressed up like their crew. Basically, they had on kind of like not a white suit completely, but almost like ushers at a wedding, sort of. And there's a little cross right here, or the upside down cross, and yeah, a little bow tie, which was pretty sick. And then yeah, we were all Ghostbusters. I mean, it was very tough to play in, because, you know, the only size they sell is like XXX. So they're all huge on us, and it's extremely hot, even though it's like the end of October in New York. So it was cold out, but in the arena it was flipping hot for sure.
It's kind of,
I always enjoy the pranks. Always look forward to that last show. I was bummed because they didn't prank us, so I was curious. But,
well, like, I know that's usually, like, you have your first day of tour kind of hijinks that kind of go on, and then usually the end of day for sure, like, is when a lot of pranks happen. And so it was kind of, when you had told me about it at the time, I was like, oh man, that'll be really interesting. Although the thing I was thinking of is you're not really going to get much of a reaction from any of them because they're all wearing masks. So other than maybe like seeing the visual of them like laughing or grabbing themselves or whatever, right, it's kind of like it may not incite as much of a response as you may have thought. I don't know, just kind of because like they seem so serious about everything. So even kind of almost in using a wrestling term, kayfabing it to where they'd even give into the fact that, you know, they find that amusing. It kind of had me wondering, like, would they even acknowledge that they find it funny, or would they just be very stoic and like, we're still playing?
They had a laugh, which was you know, that's, I guess, really why you do it. You know, it's for fun, and hey, we've all been, you know, at summer camp, if you will, for the past month together, and we've all smelled each other's farts. And, you know, here we are. Is the last one. Let's just be jolly, have a good time, make fun of each other, you know, in a not terrible, offensive way, you know. But yeah, it's the pranks are I think one of the best parts of tour. It sucks because it's always the end, but it's fun because you get to think about it the entire tour and how to get them, or something you haven't done before.
What's one of your favorite tour pranks, whether it be done to you or you doing it to another band?
Yeah, so the band Palisades, I think, takes the cake. I'll tell you the whole night. So we pranked them by basically getting lawn chairs, a kiddie pool, and fun noodles. And I think Johnny was in a bikini. So just during their letdown song, we all walked out, and we basically got them to beer bong through a fun noodle, and while they're playing in the middle of each song, you know, every single member. So it was awesome. And you know that the rule is, it's like you can't mess up the song. You know, everybody's just got to get through it. So that was for them. Then the second band, Bad Flower, we ended up saran wrapping them, like each member, basically all their legs. We weren't allowed to do, their hands or whatever, and they're all surprised. And then we did take away like the classic take the drums away. I don't know if you've been at a show.
Piece by piece.
Yeah, basically, leave a trap kit type of thing. And Anthony still killed it. The last song, which was awesome. It's always good to see that. And then for Of Mice and Men, we got two of our crew guys. We had ordered T-Rex inflatable costumes, fan like in the back. And the idea was like, man, it would be so awesome to see two T-Rexes like going nuts to metalcore and everything. So that was epic. And during the time whenever the T-Rexes are just like moshing and going nuts, we ended up like having little Nerf guns and like we killed the T-Rexes on stage, which was pretty sick. So they had went down, and the guys got a kick out of it because they ended up, while they're playing the song, lay down next to the T-Rex and be dead with them. And they'll finish the song. So then, in conclusion, during our set, Palisades, at a very emotional part, we're right on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and the culture is big there. So they had paid a mariachi band $150 to basically come in through the back door. Like as soon as we finished the song, they just come in and just go balls to the wall and start playing mariachi. It was nuts. It was really, really funny. And definitely takes the cake for the best prank I think I've ever seen.
I think one of the better ones I've seen was New Year's Day and Rivals were on tour, and they were playing the front room at the intersection. So it's like a 400 cap room.
Yeah.
And New Year's Day is going, and like during Rivals set, because they're using their in-ears and stuff like that, and they have like kind of like a drum part where like everyone's kind of playing like a random drum piece, and it's kind of like this whole thing. And the New Year's Day crew pumped over, like, I don't remember what song it was, but it was like a hip-hop song. But, like, the band still is hearing their stuff in their in-ears, so to them it just sounds exactly the way it's supposed to. But to everybody else, they're hearing this hip-hop track, and then they're coming out with, like, weed lays and stuff like that, and they're, like, smoking out the fog machining the stage and stuff like that. And I think they were playing Next Episode by Dr. Dre, now I think about it. And it was kind of like one of those where I was like, that's a prank, I guess. The band, like, just straight up didn't even, like, when they were done, they laughed at the people coming on stage and everything. And then when they were done, they're like, oh, there was a song playing? Oh, we couldn't hear it.
Right.
So it was like one of those where it's like half of the joke was lost. During New Year's Day set, though, Rivals, like, immediately beelined and then come back in with 4 tires. And then Ash is like, are those our trailer tires?
Oh, no.
So they took their trailer tires and then all kind of sat and were bouncing on them during their set. And I was like, that's at least a funnier, more creative prank than I've seen in a while. Because usually it's, I'm thinking of, like, Corey Taylor walking out during Chimera set wearing, like, a sock. And then it's like, he's just walking around with that or whatever. It's like, usually it's kind of relatively low-key. But taking the act of having to change tires, which I'm assuming, anybody that's been in a band or been in a van tour is probably real fast at, changing tires, especially when you got more people doing it. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty clever prank because it's like, oh shit, you have our tires.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good one. In a similar fashion to the band As Lions, at the end of the tour at Machine Shop, we had saran wrapped their van and trailer together or whatever. Pretty good. It looked awesome. Although it was, and it was really easy to clean up. All you have to do is get scissors or a knife and just cut through it and take it off. But that was a nice, unveiling, if you will. They come out after the show and, see their van and trailer all saran wrapped, which is pretty good.
I think it's funny. I feel like, that night that we were doing the last interview on your bus, it seemed like a lot of hijinks were happening just between you and your crew. I mean, you swapping out your actual bedding because for whatever reason, because someone else did it to you the day before or something, and I was just like, man, it just seems like sometimes like I could see how quickly you could get really irritated on tour. Like,
Yeah.
man, I just want my own bunk because I remember like bringing you all those beers and you were like, oh man, I think like the crew drank them and I'm really bummed. I was like trying to save one of them for my wife and this, that, and the other, and then like so it went from like to then all of a sudden I found them and like everything's cool again and it's
yeah that night that ended or escalated quickly because it was all in good fun. Like Ben bought this $100 flashlight and he was so psyched about it, and he was constantly like flashing us in the eyes and just telling us about how awesome his flashlight was. And it was like, man, it'll be really good if I just steal his flashlight because that is what I need to do. and so I did, and he's kind of freaking out and looking for it and asking about it all day. And I didn't fulfill my plan, but I'll get to that. So it's after the show already. I'm hanging out with you, and we're doing the podcast. And then for everybody listening, I ended up, we came out of the back lounge, and then I look in my bunk I had been collecting beers from every show. When you travel, there's good beers everywhere you go, and it's really cool to sample and see what each town and city is about. So I had collected a bunch of them all lined in my bunk, which was pretty sweet. And they were all gone, and my mattress was gone, and my pillow was gone. And it was like, oh, man, Ben got me back good. I looked at my phone, and lo and behold, like my mattress is in the rafters. There's a picture of it, which is pretty epic. I will hand it to him to have put my mattress way up there. And it ended up getting a little heated. He was kind of pissed off, but it was okay. And I gave him the flashlight back and my mattress and all the beers. The beers were safe. So
what I don't think you talked really about the beer you just finished. What how was the flavor on that?
Very good.
What is it kind of more like this? What's surprising is like I had a friend of mine try one the other day, and he was like, I'm really surprised that the vanilla flavor is so far on the front end of the flavor profile with the IPA kind of milkshake lactosey flavor more on the back end, because usually you're getting on an IPA especially you're getting that flavor usually right up front. So it's really weird that this is so front loaded with the vanilla flavor, and that it tastes so like candy kind of vanilla, like an actual like milkshake kind of vanilla, like that nice like hand spun vanilla like milkshake. That's obviously like an artificially flavored milkshake.
Yeah. I hear that. What brewery is that, by the way?
Southern Tier.
Okay. I don't think I haven't had them. That's Michigan?
That is, I feel like it should tell me somewhere on here.
Right, yeah. Might have to look at Untapped or whatever.
New York.
Oh, okay, nice.
So next time you're in New York, go busting ghosts.
Here,
Try to get one of those.
Yeah,
If you got another one of them sherbet gimmicks, I can try to figure out a swap here, and I'll swap you one of these for one of those.
Yeah, I do. I need to get a box worth of beer, some good stuff down here. Send your way for sure. It'd be a good trade. I was drinking some goodies. Yeah, the sherbet's excellent though. It's way more of a sour. It's really tart, just like the sherbet, which is awesome. And it's a tinge, maybe too tart, maybe a little too acidic, but nonetheless, I mean, it hits all the flavors in the rainbow sherbet spectrum, that you could hope for. Untitled Art does a rainbow sherbet as well. And man, if you see that, definitely grab it. It's a treat. It's a dessert for sure. All right.
Yeah,
the PB&J now. I have to.
There was one in my Rochester Mills milkshake Stout box set that I sent you the photo of that they put out every like holiday, their holiday pack. There was one. It was a chocolate cheesecake milkshake stout, and that thing was so fucking good.
Dude,
Like, I didn't, when I poured it, I didn't realize that it was a chocolate cheesecake. I just thought it was a chocolate milkshake stout. So when I got that cheesecake flavor on the back end, I was like, oh my god, it's so good.
dude, that's awesome. That's really cool. I'd had a raspberry cheesecake actually at a local brewery, Weathered Souls, and yeah, it was maybe one of the best beers I've ever had, for sure. It was incredible.
I don't see a whole lot of cheesecake style beers, which is weird because it seemed like it would lend itself, obviously it has, lends itself really well to a very interesting balanced beer between kind of, especially when you do like milkshake IPAs or porters or stouts, kind of the more coffeeier kind of graham cracker flavor mixed with some of your sweeter flavors that kind of are on the front end of it. But I'm surprised I don't see more of them readily out in the wild.
Yeah. I think it's because it's really hard to nail the graham cracker. Like
I've tried some horrible fucking beers that are graham cracker crust something or other, and it's like, nope.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, nowhere in this is there graham. Yeah, that's funny. All right, PB&J, here we go.
Have you had this before?
Mm-mm. Oh, ooh, yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that good, nice bit of peanut butter, a little jelly for sure, and yeah, I've noticed, as you have more beers from each brewery, they all have kind of like their go-to type of thing, and like with Fourth Tap, it has a comfortable like bitter on the end, nothing too offensive or turn off, but it's like and kind of creamy at the same time. It's definitely most of their stouts that are this way. Like I feel like they use the same stuff. Like they have the same base, and then they look like with this much we're gonna do a PB&J. With this much we're gonna do banana split. Then we're gonna do brownie, chocolate bliss. Yeah, they have some goodies, some craziness that I've been psyched about. But I feel like I can spot it. Like I could do a blind taste test type of thing and know, oh, that's Fourth Tap. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
The peanut butter craze in beer has been really crazy. Like we have two breweries. There's one Saugatuck that has a really good peanut butter. I think it's just a peanut butter cup. So it's got a little bit of the chocolate flavor, but man, that thing is so good. It is probably my favorite peanut butter beer I've had recently. There is Grand Armory Brewing has the Nuttier Business. I think I brought one when you were here last. It's a really good peanut butter beer, but they just came out with the bourbon barrel aged version of that.
Yeah,
which it's a little heavy on the bourbon barrel kind of taste to it, but when you kind of get past that initially, man, it is it's really interesting because it kind of goes like that strong bourbon flavor with the peanut butter, and then kind of makes me start thinking of things like, what else like could you do, like, because I mean now they have what's it called, Screwball whiskey, the peanut butter whiskey.
Ooh, oh right, yep.
Have you had that yet?
I have not. I want to, and I need to.
It's shockingly really good.
Nice.
Like, if you were to go to a bar and someone's like, I'm going to get you a shot of peanut butter whiskey, you'd probably be like, fuck that, please don't. But you do, if you do that and mix it with, like, Chambord and make, like, a tall, like, double shot, it's like a nice PB&J kind of a flavor, but in shot form. It's really good. I kind of want to, I mean, I always feel like sometimes, like an alcoholic, when I talk about, like, the things I like trying to do with flavors, because I think something I had kind of talked about, like, actually, even with this, something I kind of wanted to do with this eventually is get either the Pinnacle whipped vodka and put a shot of that in this and just kind of see, like, what that kind of does, since it's more of a, more of just the whipped cream kind of a flavor, or even vanilla, like, the peanut butter stouts and stuff like that, or porters and things like that I've had, usually I'll try to find like the wit vodka or something like that, and try to find something booze and mix booze and create completely different flavors that you're not going to get from a beer or from the liquor solely, but getting something completely different. And some people look at me like I'm really weird for doing that, but I think a lot of times like you can find really interesting ways to enhance either thing and just create like something completely different. And I feel like that's sort of how the craft cocktail game kind of has been expanding, or even craft beers, where it's just people going, I'm thinking of this flavor and this flavor, and just kind of figuring out ways to do it.
Yeah, it's all about the trial and error. Has to be, and that's I definitely applaud you, for doing that. That sounds awesome, and I think that's half the fun. Like, I just really enjoy trying new flavors, and with travel, that I'm blessed to be able to do that. So it's really cool to experiment and kind of come up with new things. I hear that.
So a couple of questions. I don't know how long you have. I figured probably at least till the end of your beer. So I know we had talked about you getting your 8-string guitar.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, at this point, you've had it for a little while. You've gotten to play it a little bit more. How has that been? Adding a new toy. Speaking of new flavors and adding and trying to create with these things, how has that been? Playing around with a new instrument with different tunings and all that kind of stuff for you.
Yeah, it's good. It's really helped push me out of my comfort zone in a lot of ways. And I believe 2 songs on the record will be on the 8-string. It's a lot of fun, and like anything, you get out of your comfort zone and start somewhere new to just see what happens. And actually, the first live stream thing that we did, we ended up teasing the song Spirits, and that's the first thing I wrote on the 8-string. And it's cool. It's got like similar to Mr. MTV type of riff. It's in 6/4 or whatever. Feels like Kashmir or whatever. It's like the drums are in 4, but the music is in 6, and it just feels like, I don't know, it just really grooving. But at the same time, like, I wanted to take something that's like low and brutal, if you will, to go there, and then at the same time go to something way more melodic and be able to use like the strength of the 8-string. And you can have all frequencies, and when they lock in, it can be really cool, especially when it's like I ended up catering the guitar to the specific key of the song, to where there's a bunch of open strings, and it really accentuates some of the chords and brings it to life, especially when you're a one guitar band.
Right.
So that's fun to do, to try and fill all of the frequency spectrum. It's like, all right, it's me and Dan. Here we go. Do it.
It's like, it was funny. My hair, like, to people who have never seen me, I probably look like an asshole because with my braids.
Dude, you're great. I was gonna comment. I really like them.
It's a thing where like my hair, like, my hair just naturally does like the emo swoop thing. So I was like, I'm tired of fighting it. I'll get ahead of the emo trend that's probably coming in the next 3 years and just get it. But the problem is like in growing, especially once this happened, is usually I'd go get it trimmed up and stuff, like especially once it gets like into my mouth. And I've not had hair long enough in a very long time to get into my mouth or be in my eyes all the time and just be annoying, where you're like, come on, man, like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And so my wife has just been like, I'm gonna braid it, and does like a different braid every day. And I was just like, as long as it keeps it out of my face, like, I'm cool. Like, maybe this is the way to grow my hair long, but just not have it be in my face and deal with that issue. But what's funny is, like, I made a comment when she did the cornrows the other day, as I was like, well, I feel like I need to learn a corn riff and like play corn riffs at this point. So I went and, like, I don't own a 7-string, so I took my newer ESP EC1000 and dropped that thing down, tuned it to a 7-string, sans the high string. So basically, it's like it's in A basically, but I also haven't changed that guitar to the strings I normally play, which is meant for drop tunings. So it's still in whatever came from ESP's factory. So like those stupidly like thin strings. And when you're trying to play something that low, it's like you can hear it in the video of me playing it. You can just hear like the strings just kind of flopping as I'm like trying to play the trying to play the riff, and it got to the point where like everything I was trying to play needed that low E string basically, or the high E string, and I was like, man, I think I have to go all the way back to the first record because like that's where they were doing a lot of like big riffs on the lower strings. And so trying to play, I ended up sticking to Predictable off their first record. And it was one of those things, like, I haven't really tried learning Korn before because I have never had a 7-string. And it was one of those things where it's a very basic riff. It's like 4 chords, all within the first 5 frets, and using the first 3 strings. But the way, it's almost like a thrash riff, kind of slowed down like mid-tempo, because the way you got to play it, it's a lot of quick bar chords that are using a two fret spacing, and then you're switching strings too between those 3. So it's real easy to get that thing real sloppy in a hurry. And it was just like one of those things where it gave me a whole new appreciation for Korn riffs. And when people were like, "It's just down tuned, they're just doing straight up bar chords or whatever," it's like, no, there's some serious riffing going on in there, and like when you start learning stuff like that, because everyone, when 7 strings became a thing, everyone was like, oh, it's the cheat way to write heavy riffs or whatever, and it's like, no, there's some musicality that still has to go into it, and especially when you start adding the extra string, it gets a little bit harder. Like I know from playing on some 7 strings, I can barely bar chord a 7-string guitar because it's just, the neck is so wide. And, you see people like Joshua Travis of, like, Emure and Glass Cloud and all that who are playing 9 strings, and I'm like, how, man? Like, how are you, like, why?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that as I was kind of trying to reconfigure Korn riffs on a 6-string and down-tuning that much. I was like, oh, I know I'm talking to Mark, like, and I know he just got his new pet project thing there with that, so I was like, oh, I know about that and how that's been going.
Yeah. I'm probably the wrong person to ask about what is okay to do, because for Ballast, it's like, oh, Johnny wrote this programming thing, and it's in A, and for a 6-string, and I ended up tuning down the low string to A, and it's floppy as hell. But I managed to make it work, and I figured out, when you tune it to the attack, as long as you don't have anything that you need to sustain for too long, you're going to be good, and it's not going to go flat. And I tried getting thicker strings or just for that 1 string, but it felt too weird and just completely changed the tone. So now, of course, I really, recommend just, do things nobody's done, try and do something different. Why not? So like tuning down the low string to basically an octave of you're tuning down the 6th string to be an octave of your 5th string, and like doing stuff like that. So that's been a lot of fun, and there'll be a song on the record that has that as well. So yeah, dude, tune down your strings. Have fun. Tune some up too.
Yeah, no, I was talking to Theo from Ego Kill Talent a little while ago in preparation for Sonic Temple, which is now no longer happening.
Yeah.
And was one of those things where they have a very interesting sound, and it sounds very like, modern radio rock, active radio rock sound. But there's just kind of something about it that has a unique sound to it that I can't quite put my finger on. And in talking to him, he's like, oh, well, we do, like, weird open tunings, basically, but, like, down-tune open tunings. And so, like, kind of nerding out with him on some of that, it was just like, oh. And then he's like, oh, like, I'm just talking, like, we're in an open tuning, it's like D, A, D, D, A, D, basically, or whatever. And I was like, oh, I think Tremonti used that on My Sacrifice off of Weathered by Creed. Like, he was kind of playing around with a lot of different tunings. And that was the only reason I had even remembered that, was because I tried learning that so long ago. And I'm thinking to myself, the fuck is this tuning? And who plays in this? But then there's even, like, I'm thinking of, like, Every Time I Die on the, like, last 2 or 3 records they've been doing. Typically, they've been just a straight D tuned band. Like their riffs sound great. They, you know, a lot of it is just the tone that gives it the heaviness, not necessarily the tuning. But then recently, you know, they've been playing around in like a weird C-ish kind of a tuning, and it just adds a completely different sound to what they're able to do. And even trying to learn some of those songs has kind of made me even start looking at it going like, okay, like I play in a lot of C and drop C tuning because it's just typically metalcore and stuff like that. It sounds good. You're able to play like good sounding riffs, but your you know, your octaves and stuff really shine through and kind of add a little bit of brightness to it that maybe aren't as diverse dynamically. And it was just like one of those things, like playing around with a lot of different stuff is in the last few years has really opened me up to like what is possible. But I keep coming back to, like, lately I was just texting a friend where I was like, I think I kind of want to get an acoustic again. Like, I haven't had an acoustic in a while, and I feel like I want to write some, like, weird, pretty stuff with, like, open tunings and that, or, like, with a capo and kind of play around with that as you move it around. And, you know, like, a lot of City and Color has been, you know, getting introduced back into my rotation on iTunes and stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, that sounds good too.
Cool. That's cool, man. No, it's nice to go through the spectrum, you know. Go really heavy, right? Like you're saying, like I'm gonna learn some corn riffs, and and then completely go to the other side too. And I'm excited with the new record. There definitely are several like just straight up singer-songwriter songs in standard tuning, and and one that I'm working on is way more even like Bob Dylan, like as far as like the lyrics and the vocal melody. It's a good sad story, you know, good storyteller type of thing, and it'll be cool to have. Hopefully, we'll see what happens, but you know, to have several 8-string songs that are really heavy and much more in the Deftones periphery world or whatever, and you know everything that lives in between. And at the same time have stuff that's, you know, even almost the Weekend, which is like super poppy, and it's like, what?
Dude, that new Weekend song,
Yeah.
maybe it's just me. I hear Young Turks by Rod Stewart on that like melody thing.
Yeah.
Man, I hear that like when that came on, I was like, is someone sampling Rod Stewart? And then I realized it was the Weekend, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if a lot of people are like gonna draw that correlation, but I was like, that sounds like the Young Turks kind of like synthesizer line that he's got going in that as the new like counter melody that he's got going in that song. That's a banger though.
Yeah, it's a good tune. Yeah, we have a couple that are, I don't know, like even not dancey or anything, but they
oh come on, you gotta bring some dance tracks now.
No. They live in their own world as far as everything we're working on, which is good. It's probably nearing like 30 songs, and I know half of them are probably gonna get cut, or I don't know, we'll figure out a double record or something. But it's it's really cool. I'm very excited about a lot of these tones and kind of lyrical concepts that we have going on too. It's good. Everything's still, because we take forever, it's still far off, and we aren't even like to a really good demo stage, which I guess our demos maybe sound like somebody else's like done song as far as like how we all like really think about things. Like we could just, you know, jam something out for the start, but to stand by everything, and it's like, okay, this is the lyrical approach. You know, we're all happy about these melodies, and there's something special in the musical implementation. It stands out. It's not just, you know, we're not made. Like we want to make sure that each song gives us goosebumps,
right?
And that they're each living in their own lyrical concept land by themselves, and we're not repeating ourselves too, you know.
So I guess kind of the last few questions I have for you, because I'm about done with my beer and I think you're about done with yours. When do you, I've never asked anyone this, so forgive me kind of working my way through the question,
All good.
When do you start thinking of a producer when you're writing? Like what? Because like obviously, like to me, like if I were probably in your guys' shoes, I'd probably be looking at someone like Nick Raskulinecz, who's done like Deftones stuff, so obviously can handle a lot more of those lower end frequencies and stuff like that. Kind of has worked with Hailstorm, knows how to kind of be in that realm too. You know, that would be someone I'd be thinking of. I'd kind of maybe be looking at maybe Josh Wilbur a little bit, even though he kind of tends to be more on the heavier side of things, but, you know, has more of a, let's say, a modern production for heavier stuff, you know, working with Lamb of God and Gojira and stuff and making it quote-unquote accessible. So, you know, at what point when you're kind of writing stuff are you thinking of a producer, you know, that you want to work with?
That's a good question. I don't think I haven't thought of anybody in, I think, nearly 15 years. Just because, like, since the Few Not Fleeting, like, we've done our own stuff. We've always self-produced. And our manager, Will, ends up helping out with producing and co-mixing the record. So Johnny and him have done the past 2 records as far as the mixing stage goes. It would be cool. So yeah, that being said, it would be cool to work with another producer, but man, we're so particular, and like we would drive them off the wall because if being a musician, you know, it's like you have your things that you go to. And like, this is my dirty, these are my effects, this is typically where I like to stay in my box, and so does a producer. You know what I mean? These are the plugins that they use. They get everything to sound like this. You know, not all of them, but a lot of them have their shtick, you know, their mold that basically they just pour bands into. And we're not that at all. Like, we've done that, and then we've early on, and it's, you know, it just told us immediately that it's like, man, we don't want to do this. And Johnny really took it upon himself to, all right, like, I'm going to study sound engineering and I'm going to do this. And we all kind of became our own engineers too, and just started recording ourselves. And that's the good thing. You can tinker for as long as you want. It's good and bad because you find yourself tinkering forever, but you aren't being charged for it, you know, being in a studio and whatnot. It is, I will say that, like, we highly recommend having anybody that you trust and respect to basically bounce your ideas off of. For us, it's been Will, our manager, and this guy, Paco Estrada, just a brilliant songwriter from, our past, whom we met in 2005, of the band South FM. And he's just an awesome songwriter, and he's just, says, like, well, what are you guys trying to say? Early on, it's like, well, why don't you just say that? And just kind of cut the fat in a lot of ways, that it's like, damn, you're right. Yeah, let's go back to and woodshed, these riffs and this the lyrical concept, and make sure that we're saying what we really want to say, and not just being vague and artistic, like so many bands do, that it's like, oh no, I'm just doing this, and I can use these big fancy words or whatever, but it doesn't mean anything,
Right.
It's like, it didn't do anything for me. The music was on point, and our thing is like that magical, like, feeling you get from when the lyrics and the music, like, yes, that is what I feel, that is what I want. And to create that goosebump, moment, that impactful, make you weep, if you will. And those are the songs that have, changed my life from bands that I love. And like,
Yeah, I mean, I knew you guys do your own stuff in house, but it kind of has, knowing labels, knowing that side of things from having friends in the industry for as long as I have. There's always the desire and want to take what you're doing and make it better. And so, I could just see someone going, you know who you need to work with? X, Y, or Z person, because they're hot right now. They're making, chart topping albums with these bands that are in your same, lane. Maybe you should try doing this. And I always, when that kind of stuff happens, point to Killswitch Engage. They're a very self-contained band. Mike does all the graphic design, Adam does all the producing, and I looked at that first self-titled record they did with Howard Benson. Now, in name, Howard Benson probably would put out one of the best records you've ever heard, especially in metalcore, because he's not done a metalcore record. However, that record sounds weird. And, I mean, from what I understand, I think Howard only ended up doing basically Howard Jones's vocals because Adam tried doing guitars with him and was like, I'm not really feeling this. We're going to go back and do things the way I do it.
Yeah.
But it makes for a disjointed sounding record that sounds unsure of who they are and what they wanted to present, which probably explains why they do not play anything off of that record or really even acknowledge that record. I think, actually, it's almost the record that broke them up. But it's one of those things where that's one of the few instances of a band that has kind of self-contained and done all of their stuff throughout their whole career, and in one instance, you get a snapshot of them trying to do something different in that regard, and it's not a good product that they put out. Because I think there was one other hand in the pot that made the formula not work.
Yeah.
So made me wonder if there was any of that kind of stuff where, with the success that you've had, if you're possibly even thinking of going a different route with that as far as a producer goes or anything.
No, I got you, and that's a good question. No. In short, but long story long is I tend to ramble. I mean, we could be open to it. I think for me, at the end of the day, it's like, do I vibe with somebody? Do I know them? Do I respect what they've done? Do I feel like they don't just keep doing the same thing? Because I don't want to be, I don't want my band to be all of those other bands and poured into that mold. Granted, guys like Howard Benson, it's like, I mean, he's very successful, and he's got a sound and he's got these skills and he can do that. So that's not to take away from, his capability. And I that would really just limit us to like, okay, yeah, let's try a song together. Because there's nothing wrong with trying things, because at the end of the day, you don't have to do anything with it. We've worked with several writers and producers and whatnot and had songs that are like, nope, doesn't sound like us. Or it's funny, the song If I Were, when we first worked with Scott Stevens, whom actually we really connected with, and he's been part of the team as far as like a collaborator in the mix, and we consider him family. He's just a great melody guy, and he can help out to, like, when we're stuck and it's like, all right, we don't know what to do with this, and he can have an idea that kind of reset everything. But he's way more of a like active rock pop guy. And the first time we did the song If I Were, it's like we came back with it, and it's like, man, the riff sounded exactly like Switchfoot, Meant to Breathe, Meant to Live, and which I really like Switchfoot. So
yeah, you're great, man.
Song. It was just, man, this doesn't sound like us. This is kind of lame and not exciting at all. Like, I'm just really disappointed in our musical capabilities, and the lyrics were like so short. We just kept repeating ourselves. Granted, we did have the core, which was like, if I were God, and then it was like, well, what would you do? And that's when Dan kind of came in with the idea. It's like, well, you wouldn't do anything, and that was kind of the twist of it all and what made that song work. But kind of getting back to like, we're not a band that's like, I wrote this song, here, nothing more, have it, and you can take that and just use it. We took that idea from If I Were, and then basically we went back to the home studio, and it's like, all right, let's recreate this riff. Like, let's make the music nothing more and keep what was good about what Scott did. But a lot of producers and songwriters, they're not down with that. They
I feel like
want,
it's because they want points.
you know what I mean? Well, like 100%. Like, nope, this is how it is, and you can't maintain your artistic integrity, and that's bullshit. You know, at the end of the day, nobody knows the band better than you do. You know.
I think it's as good of a place as any to end this.
Yeah.
Obviously, where can everyone find you guys in the band? Online?
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows everything. Just or yeah, but yeah, if you enjoyed this, definitely follow John and Bruce Speak, and I always have a good time talking with him, and yeah, he likes good beer, and we'll both be posting good beers and things about it. So everybody's.
Absolutely.
I know this.
Spam risk, call me. But enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks again for doing this. Sorry I kept you way longer than I thought I was going to. At this point, this is par for the course for you whenever you do one of these, it seems like at least an hour.
I know, I talked to you. Sorry.
Enjoy the rest of your night, and hopefully this shit will go away soon, and we can do these and not